afternoon, everybody, and welcome to this afternoon's webinar, where we're going to discuss the Dynamics GP upgrade process with Nolan's and how we can simplify the steps that we go through, or simplify the understanding of the upgrade. Abraham Lincoln once said, "Give me 6 hours to chop down a tree and I'll spend the first 4 sharpening the axe." And certainly with GP upgrades, it might seem at times that the preparation of sharpening that axe takes an awful long time, but it's really important to get all that preparation right so that the actual go live process of the upgrade is nice and simple. And a lot of that preparation is done behind the scenes without disturbing the users or the business as usual processes within your organization. What we aim for is that when we actually come to the actual go live, it's just updating the data, which is a nice quick process, and then the users have already had a chance to do all their testing and training on the test system beforehand. So this afternoon we're just going to spend about 20 minutes just going through the steps that we look at in terms of an upgrade of Dynamics GP. And I've separated those into 3 separate areas. So there's the preparation and planning, which I spoke about. That's a really important part. Just making sure you've got everything prepared, your environment's right, and that the planning has gone to schedule for a successful upgrade. There's obviously a technical aspect to it, making sure that the hardware, etc. is right, and there's a software aspect to it as well. Which software are we actually going to be upgrading and in what way are we going to be upgrading it? So we've represented the cogs that you're seeing with a color scheme. So the dark green ones relate, if I just go back, relate to the preparation and planning. The lighter green, turquoise ones are the technical aspect, and the blue are the software aspect, software. So we start off the process typically at Nolan's with a PID, a project initiation document. And this document we write, which goes through who the stakeholders are, what the lines of communication are, who's the main people to speak to for various things, not only at the customer but also at Nolan's. So we allocate a project manager, we also allocate a head consultant and an escalation path. This all means that everybody who's got something to do with the project knows who to talk to get things done. It also highlights the main areas to do with the project and perhaps the areas of risk. So as we're coming towards holiday season, perhaps school holidays, what kind of risks are involved in an upgrade at this time of year. Might be that the key stakeholders or some of the key users aren't there at a certain time. So it's worthwhile looking at that to make a sensible decision as to when a good time to go live is. So the PID covers these elements and gives us all a clear understanding of how that project is going to run. We also do an upgrade audit where quite often this is done remotely by a consultant logging into your environment and running a number of pre-upgrade checks. So this is how much data do you have, how big are your databases, what versions are you currently on, not only of your GP but of your Windows, of your SQL Server, your third-party applications and other applications that might be interfacing into Dynamics. We also look at what modifications you've got to your Dynamics environment. So you might have modified reports, you might have integration manager setups, you might have modified FRX or management reports. So it's looking at all of this to be able to put together a complete plan of how we're going to upgrade it, and also coming from that we're able to give you an accurate quote on the time taken to do it. And our quotes within the upgrade audit can be quite granular down to how much time it'll take to perform each task. So within that planning area, we're able to come back to you then with a quote on what we're going to be doing, with a really good idea of what we need to do, and also the project initiation document. The next step really is to look at the hardware that you're running your Great Plains on, and work out whether that hardware is something that is good enough to be able to run the later versions of GP on, or whether you need to replace that hardware. It might be that you've got in-house on-premise type hardware, and you're looking at that at this point as part of the upgrade, maybe to consider moving it to a private cloud environment. You might be also running GP on people's own PCs, and you might think now's a good time to put the client onto like a Citrix or a terminal server type environment and just have one client that everybody logs into, commonly known as a thin client. General rule is don't economize on hardware when you're doing an upgrade. Make sure that the environment you're working on has sufficient disk space, has sufficient memory, because otherwise the loss in productivity on the hardware on skimping, on saving on the hardware, will certainly, the savings on that will be overridden by the time loss that you'll have when using GP. Also, when we do an upgrade, we'll talk about this when we talk a little bit more about the software. Depending on what version you've got of GP, you might need to go through interim versions on the upgrade to get to your final destination. For example, if you're on GP 2010, for example, we might need to upgrade you to Service Pack 4 before you can upgrade up to GP 2015 or GP 2016 from there. So there might be an interim step if you're on older versions of GP. So it's also thinking about what hardware we're going to use for that interim step. As far as the client's concerned, I mentioned before that the client's software is quite often installed on your staff's local PCs. And if that's the case, the upgrade process, part of the upgrade process means we need to go to each PC to reinstall the new version of the software on those PCs. It might be that you decide at this point that to make it simpler, what we're going to do is install terminal services on a bigger server, and everyone will log into that one client on terminal services. There's pros and cons for that approach, and here at Nolan's we're able during this process to advise you on what's a good fit for your organization. The third option there is you might not want to host anything internally anymore, and you might want to put it out to a private cloud provider. The private cloud provider will provide an environment for you remotely. They'll manage that, they'll do the backups, they'll make sure that there's a fail-safe environment, so if the hardware goes down, they're quickly able to recover that. And that might be a good option for you if you're looking down that line to spread the risk and put GP out on something like a private cloud environment. Finally, the cog there of the SQL database is working out what version of SQL you're currently on and what version of SQL is supported in the later versions. So Microsoft quite often release new versions of the SQL database, and older versions of the SQL database are not compatible with the new versions of GP. This is because there might be features that have been put into your Dynamics GP environment that rely on the new features inside the SQL database. So therefore, it's working out which version of SQL you've got to go to, and part of the migration is not only migrating the data from one version of GP to another, but also from one version of SQL database to another. So looking at the hardware, the clients, and the SQL database, we're able now to be able to see what environment we need to set up and get that set up well in advance of when we want the upgrade to be performed. So now we start focusing on actually what we're going to be upgrading, and obviously we're upgrading your core Dynamics modules. But around any core Dynamics, you will find integrations where you're integrating not only using products like Integration Manager, but also integrations maybe from your own internal systems, integrations coming in of journals, maybe from spreadsheets, integration of invoices maybe coming in from some billing system. So we look at those integrations and work out what we need to do to upgrade it. So it might be as simple as just upgrading the Integration Manager application. But sometimes it's also worthwhile at this point to look at the integration tools, some of the new ones available, and working out whether there's more productivity in going to another integration tool. So Microsoft have released products like eConnect, and there's other third-party products that worked with eConnect, like Smart Connect, that might make it actually quicker and easier to do those integrations rather than using the Integration Manager. Reporting, if you're on FRX as a module was replaced by Microsoft's Management Reporter. Management Reporters are very similar to FRX in the way that it's designed, in that it has rows and columns and reporting trees. But it's got a different back end, a different front end for the users to view those reports. So as part of the upgrade, if you are currently on FRX, one of those processes is converting your reports from FRX into Management Reporter. It might be too that you're using other products for your reporting. You might be exporting into Excel. We can look at this point integrating live links into Excel as well, being able to provide on your network Excel reports straight out of Great Plains that are able to provide the information that you need. And the later versions of Dynamics GP come with a lot of pre-built Excel reports, SQL reporting services reports. And in GP 2016, they also link out to Microsoft's Power BI, which is a complete business intelligence suite of tools that live up in the cloud as part of your Office 365 offering. So again, it's worthwhile at this point just looking at how you're doing reporting, what you're reporting on, and whether there's better tools around now to help you with those reports. With the standard GP reports as well, you can modify them. And what we've found as part of the upgrade process there is that some people have modified reports that have been modified many years ago. And the newer reports inside Dynamics are actually incorporate the data that they want, and therefore we look at whether the standard format out of the box report is better than the modified one, in which case we'll be speaking to you about let's drop the modifications and let's just go back to the standard reports. Customization of third-party solutions, we need to make sure that any customizations or any third-party solutions that you do use are upgraded at the same time. The reputable third-party solution providers will already have versions, the latest versions of their products to work with Dynamics GP. So in that case, it's a case of making sure we've got the right versions and the keys. You might also have customizations written in the past to help you in certain areas of GP. It might be that newer functionality that's been put into the product means that you don't need those customizations anymore. So in order to simplify your use of GP, we look at that and we make sure that those customizations are still relevant and needed within your environment. So now we actually get to the nuts and bolts of how we do the upgrade, and initially we do a test upgrade. So using the hardware that we've procured to run your system on, we can do a test upgrade through the different levels if we need to. That test upgrade, at the same time, we might upgrade the Integration Manager, we might upgrade your FRX reports, certainly upgrade your modified forms and reports, and your data. That gives you a complete test environment to be able to use, play with, train and test with. Once that then moves us into UAT, and we can allocate an amount of time to you as an organization that you need to do a good job of that user acceptance testing. This involves the users going on, making sure that their as-is processes are adequately catered for in the new system. Whether it's at this point that we've changed the process slightly because of new features, or whether it's that it is just a like for like. It'll be a good idea for all your users to test their business as usual processes to make sure that when we go live, those processes are going to be running for them in the manner that they expect. Putting in journals, putting in sales orders, putting in cash, paying invoices, and producing the reports at the end, all common things that we do within the UAT. At that point as well, we issue an issues log, and that issues log is a document which we pass between ourselves and our project manager and you as customers. New issues can go in the log, and we can make sure that there's timely responses to those issues and that all the issues are addressed before we actually go live. The timing here is important, and that's why I was saying a timely resolution to those issues. At some predefined stage, we'll have a go, no-go flag to say, yep, we're happy that all the UAT has been done, that all the issues that we've come up with, all the questions that we've had have been answered, and we're now ready to go live. Because of the thoroughness of the test upgrade and that testing, that go live process should then be, we should be able to produce and run that process over a period of time using the hardware we've already got and the implementation of the software that we've already got sitting on that environment, which means that the go live is purely just upgrading the data, making it into the simplest process that we can, non-disruptive for your users. Sometimes with agreement between yourselves and Nolan's, we might do this overnight or over a weekend to make sure that you have no downtime at all. Once you go live, the process after that is making sure that we have someone from Nolan's either on site or certainly available to handhold your users through that first couple of days. Make sure that all the critical processes that are performed on those first couple of days go smoothly, and should anything unexpected happen, that we're on hand to be able to address those as quickly as possible. So thank you for your time, and hopefully that's been useful to you, walking through the preparation and how Nolan Business Solutions generally does upgrades. If you've got any questions, there's a question box at the end of this seminar. Feel free to enter your questions there, or please feel free to speak to your account manager, email into the office where someone will be able to address those questions for you. If you're looking for an upgrade, please also contact us, and we'll be happy to start going through this process with you, working out what needs to be done. Okay, so thank you very much for your time this afternoon, and as there's no written questions at the moment, I will end the webinar here. Like I say, please feel free to email us should you think of any questions later. Thanks very much.